Do you keep saying that you're gonna get around to something, but you don't because you're too busy? Well, in this video, I'm gonna show you how you can think clearly in a busy life. But this takes training. If you do this training, you will effectively reprogram your mind. So today I'm gonna give you 3 different options of training that you can commit to. Make sure you stick around to the 3rd level, which is the highest intensity level that will produce the most effective person. And my name is Michael. I'm a husband, youth pastor, and I've been working on my PhD. All these different things have resulted in some really busy seasons. But because of the skills that I learned that I'm gonna share in this video, I've been able to be really busy, but still executing the important things in my life. So without any further ado, let's get into that first level of training. The first level is the moderate intensity level. And for each one of these, I'll give you the title and then a little bit of a description about what you're gonna do to train at that level. So for moderate intensity, it's 10 to 30 minutes a day, and you're gonna spend that time listening to something personal or spiritual growth related. So if you only have 10 minutes a day, say it's in your car ride to someplace, then I suggest doing spiritual related things. Spend that time talking to God. Before you head off to work, spend 5 or 10 minutes reading God's word, and so that you're prepared for what the day has. And ultimately, if you trusted Christ as your Savior, He is the one that's gonna get you through what you have to do that day, and that is more important than any skill you can learn. But if you have more than 10 minutes, then listen to something that's prioritization related, because at the end of the day, a lot of people are busy and a lot of people get a lot of things done, but what sets effective people apart is they get the most important things done. So you need to be working on your prioritization. And then as far as planning, make sure you always plan out what you're gonna do with the time that you have the next day, okay? So you'll notice each of these levels gradually gets more advanced in how far out that you plan. But at the very least, if you're not planning your day, you need to start doing that. Plan, what is the day gonna look like? What are you gonna do when? And this is also, it's gonna take you away from living in a reactive type of lifestyle so that you're now living in a proactive type of lifestyle. So people that are reactive, they tend to wake up, not really know what they're doing, and they are also usually people that get told what to do all day by their boss. But if you're somebody who moves into the proactive side of things, then you're gonna get ahead of your day. You're gonna have a plan. And when you plan, you save so much time in the day-to-day things because you're executing so much better because you're able to avoid problems, and planning is super important. So plan the day before, and this time, it might seem small, 10 to 30 minutes, but the results are really gonna compound over time. And a little intentionality goes a long way in this area because you go from just existing in your life to now you're happening to your life instead of your life always happening to you. The process for this first level is using uncommitted time for audio learning. So instead of just sitting down and reading every morning, that's gonna take more intentionality to create that time in the morning. This moderate intensity level, I just want you to spend some time listening to an audiobook or getting into a really good podcast and you can do this, when you're going for a walk, you can use car time, as I mentioned earlier, or time if you're a student in between classes. Or in some really busy seasons of life, I just paired my workout with my personal growth time, and I just listened to something personal growth oriented. And it's important to also think about the barriers you're gonna experience. The barriers you're gonna experience are your bedtime, forgetting that you're working on being more efficient, and the friends that you hang out with. These are 3 important barriers to consider, because if you don't go to bed on time, then how effective you are the next day is gonna be severely reduced. And it's also a temptation to maybe not journal or write down what you're working on, and then you just forget. And I noticed that I was, for several months, maybe a couple of years, I was trying to do month reviews, but I didn't put them in my calendar. And what a month review is, basically I go through, my marriage, my spiritual life, my schoolwork, my finances, my fitness. I just evaluate all the areas. It comes from Zig Ziglar's Wheel of Life. You could look that up. But I just journal about those once a month. And I always had this idea that every month I'm gonna be evaluating myself, but then I would just forget. So forgetting is a barrier here. And if you're gonna stick with this moderate intensity level of developing your mind, then you can't forget what you're working on. You need to write it down or put it in your calendar. And then the people you hang out with, if you're hanging out with people that are spending a whole bunch of time doing recreation and they're out super late all the time, and there's nothing wrong with recreation, but if people are always, the people that are around you are always taking the path of least resistance, then that's gonna be a barrier, because you're gonna say, I'm trying to work on my life, trying to spend a little bit of my car time in the morning, working on my spiritual and being more productive. And they're gonna look at you like, that you got 4 eyes, right? Or 5, they're just gonna not understand what you're working on. So make sure you put people around you that think the same way. The last part of this first level is how you track what you're doing. As I mentioned earlier, it's gonna be really easy to just forget that you're trying to work on being more efficient at the moderate intensity level. So that 10 to 30 minutes of uncommitted time, whether it's driving or whatever, just some downtime, the way that you're gonna keep track is how often did you, during that week, actually do that 10 to 30 minutes of work. So you could just make this a written journal. You could create a Word document, or you could just have a paper journal, but you need to track how many times a week, or even a calendar you could track on. How many times a week did you actually do the routine of this moderate intensity? So that's the first level. Now, the second level is the difficult intensity. So this is where you're gonna use intentional time, and it's ramping up a little bit. This is gonna be 45 to 60 minutes a day, and you're gonna spend that time reading something personal growth related in addition to the audio learning. So that 45 minutes, or to an hour, that can be in one sitting if you want. I've noticed that when I do things in one sitting, they're more likely to get done because it's just easier to block that time off. But maybe for you, you have a faster pace moving day, you gotta pick the kids up, whatever. But it's 45 minutes to 60 minutes. And make sure the spiritual time comes first, and then prioritization. Okay, so the same two categories, but now we're gonna add time management. I want you to read about effective ways that you can get more done or get the most important things done. And instead of just planning the day, at this level, you're gonna plan the week. So you're gonna set time aside to plan what you're doing each day of the week. And you're gonna do that on Saturday night or Sunday night before Monday, however you look at your weeks, whatever. But the point is to not just plan the day, but to plan 7 days at a time. And what you'll notice is you can really knock way more things out when you start looking at things from the week standpoint as opposed to the day. And this is great for being proactive, great for being productive. And the time, it's pretty considerable, 45 minutes to an hour each day. But at this point, you're gonna be unlike most of the people you run into. Most people don't spend 45 minutes to an hour a day working on themselves and their time management and their productivity. But if you do that for honestly, even a few months, you're gonna really stand out. You're gonna be able to see yourself do things that you didn't know you could do, and it's gonna be pretty exciting. The process at this level is a daily routine of reading, as I mentioned earlier, and you can do this in addition to the audio learning, or you can just read for that 45 to 60 minutes. But I would encourage you, if you're gonna read if you have 45 to 60 minutes, don't read the whole time. Read for part of that and then write, because you're gonna engage your brain, and you're gonna, when you read, be a little bit more attentive because you're trying to get information to write down. And it helps whenever you take content in and then do something with the content. Because if you just read, it's easy to forget where you're reading and go read the same paragraph, and it's easy to just kind of get lost. But if you know that you're gonna write something, it's a little bit easier to be engaged in the reading. But remember this, reading, it's more demanding than audio learning. And this mental exercise will definitely sharpen you more. And another thing that's helpful is start a list of books that you're interested in reading. I have a list, it's a Google Keep list, and I have the things that I read from 2021 all the way up until now, if it's not before 2021. But that really helps me. And then I have a list at a section of books at the bottom of that list that is the books that I want to read in the future. So get yourself a reading list, start working through those books that you're interested in, and even the discipline of stopping life long enough, 45 minutes to 60 minutes, the discipline of stopping life long enough to do that reading is gonna grow you, because that time doesn't just happen, especially if you have a busy schedule. But start building that reading list. Set a goal for when you wanna read the certain books by, like set a year goal and then a month goal. That way you can tell, are you on track with what you thought? And then, the first time you set a reading goal, hold that goal loosely, because you might realize that it's harder or easier than you anticipated. But that, like I said, that goal will just kind of keep you on track. Okay, but then how are you gonna track this second level? Well, you're gonna track the total minutes each week. Keep track, not just if you do your daily routine, but how many minutes each week did you actually do what you planned on doing? And I say track them by the week because I'm gonna let you make up for lost time at the week level, which actually kind of makes it a little harder, because if you're just doing day by day, you're like, oh, I missed today, 4 out of 5 days, whatever. But if you're tracking the total minutes, you can get ahead on minutes. You can spend 2 hours earlier in the week and get the rest of your time later on. But vice versa, if you're behind, you can also catch up. And so that's the challenge, is to actually get the total minutes, whatever you're gonna commit to, 45 minutes to an hour. Maybe it's 5 times a week for you. And so if you're at 3 hours and it's Friday, you gotta catch up. And then at the end of the month, you're gonna write down how well you stuck to your plan. So just go ahead and journal about what you think went wrong, what went well, and how you're gonna change next month. Without any further ado, this is the third most intense level, and this is how the top experts in every single field train. They spend 120 plus minutes a day learning. And if you look at PhD students, that's how a lot of them write their dissertations. They just do 2 hours every day. They're gonna show up, it's non-negotiable, but that is a high commitment level. So don't step into this loosely. And if you haven't been training your brain for a period of time, you might not wanna start at this level. But remember, spiritual is the most important, then prioritization, then time management, all that's the same, like in the previous level. But add philosophy to your level of training here at the most intense level. So personally, I engage a lot of philosophy because I do a PhD and it's in the New Testament. So I think about more than just how do I get this done, but what are the meanings of life and right and wrong and reasoning. But this is definitely more difficult than just standard productivity reading, right? So add something that's gonna challenge you. And when you set that book goal, it's also important to realize, hey, that book goal needs to take into consideration how difficult the works are, because if you read things that are just easy to read, that are just written like conversationally, then it's gonna be easier to read 20 books a year. But if you're gonna read more difficult, like the Bible, or you're gonna read the Iliad or the Odyssey, whatever, those things are gonna be harder. It's gonna take you more time to get through some of those works. So just keep that in mind when you're setting the goal. Now for planning at this third level, you're going to plan not by the day or the week, but by the year. So set some time aside to plan for the major projects. And then when you plan by the year, you can take advantage of the slower seasons as well. And this is gonna take you from being productive and proactive to really unusual, because the top experts spend 90 minutes a day reading on average. And if you're doing 120 minutes a day plus, you're going to learn some things that most people around you, they don't understand. And this time is a sacrifice every single day. And you will, like I said, rarely meet another person that is this committed. And it's also important to rest, because when you're working this hard at something, it's easy to become a workaholic and to only ever think about work. But don't do that, because then you're not good for your family and the people around you won't like you. Or maybe they will if they're your boss. But resting is important, so make sure you plan your rest at this level. And then when you do this for a while, it's really cool because you can reflect on previous years. You can say, oh man, this year, my fitness dropped, but my academic achievements went up. Or my work went down, but my YouTube channel went up. Whatever the case is, and then you can set general rules for yourself. I'm not going to work on this project until I've also, before that, spent 30 minutes reading. And that's gonna help you balance, because you're gonna be able to take that feedback from other years and apply it moving forward. So plan time to work on the important but not urgent things. So this is like long-term planning, learning skills that no one's making you learn. And one of the keys to investing is saving up dollars for the opportunity to come. And you don't necessarily know when those opportunities are gonna come. Well, the same is true in your productivity and in your work life as it is in investing. If you are storing up these skills over time, then when the opportunity strikes, you're ready. The process for this third level is time-blocked work each day of the week. So I want you to write down, what are you gonna do during all the hours of the work week? Also remember, if it's something that's instructional, try to write down how you're gonna apply what you're reading instead of just summarizing. Because when you summarizing is a lower level of learning, but then whenever you're thinking critically and applying, that's a higher level of learning. So you're internalizing what you're reading a little bit more effectively. And also plan the reading list for the next year at this third level. I want you to be thinking a year ahead of time and what you want to learn. And like I said, this is an extensive amount of work. So this isn't easy, because this 120 plus minutes a day, honestly, if you can make that time in your schedule, that's a little bit of a luxury, really. And not everyone's able to do this. So even the other levels, you'll definitely increase your effectiveness. But at this level, it's a huge sacrifice / a luxury if you are able to create that amount of time. So another thing you can do at this level is put things in your own words when you're writing, because it's more demanding, because you're gonna have to understand before you put it into your own words. And you're gonna, as I said earlier, you're gonna internalize this information, and you're gonna be able to just really learn at a deeper level. So another thing I want you to do at this third level is add accountability. All right, hard deadlines, financial penalties, those things, they give you some skin in the game. Not maybe for you it's like social media posting, telling the people around you, hey, I'm gonna do this, and using that as accountability. But often people who are at this level, they're putting some dollars into some training, you know, because that extra commitment, it makes you a little bit nervous. And that's good, because if you're a little bit nervous, then that can help you grow, and it can help you, because really at the end of the day, you're being uncomfortable. And so because you're uncomfortable, you're going to perform at a higher level. And a lot of people, they just stay comfortable, so they don't necessarily know what it's like to operate like this, but not you if you're gonna go to this level. So also keep a weekly template for your different things you're gonna do during the week. So yes, time block what you're gonna do, but if you go into like Google Calendar, or the calendar that I use is Fantastical, you can click on there, create a repeating event, then every single week is going to auto-populate for you. And if you do that, it's gonna help you with your time management. And then you don't have to every week go in there and make all the events. They just automatically happen. So like I said, don't start with this level. And it really is a luxury if you have 120 minutes a day or more. But this is it's gonna be intense, and a lot of people have to pay for some kind of training to make themselves work at this level. I would not work at this level if I wasn't paying for school. So how are you gonna track it at this third level? I want you to track on the year, and then I want you to update that year by the month. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier in the video, Zig Ziglar's Wheel of Life, he goes through all the different areas, and at this higher level, this third level, I want you to do that. I want you to write down how you're doing in your marriage, your work, your goals, and you're gonna do that once a month, and you're gonna put all those events in your calendar, and you're gonna make them monthly repeating. But even if you don't make them monthly repeating, you can just create 12 events for the next 12 months, and then at the end of the month, just evaluate the different areas. So it's extensive, it's not easy, and each month you're gonna journal about how you're doing in the different areas, and as I mentioned, throw that in the calendar. These are the 3 levels of how to reprogram your mind. So pick one, write it down, stick with it, and you'll be able to be highly intentional even if you're super busy. And if you want to learn more about, maybe you're struggling with procrastination, I did a video on that. You can click the video below and learn how to stop procrastinating. We'll see you guys in the next one.